Yo, Challenger Coaching here. So, here is my first opinion about the patch. This will be a quick one. Um, just gonna talk about mainly balance changes, of course. So, Naafiri got released. Aatrox got a really good scaling buff, which in general means that later on he gonna deal more damage towards minions, and also his percentage AD scaling gonna be a bit higher. Riot Games noted it himself that the second cast of his Q will still deal 25% more than the base damage, and the third cast will deal 50% more. Now, one important thing to point out that the base damage did get nerfed a little bit later on, but it shouldn't be a big issue because the percentage scaling is higher by 20%, which means if you ult and Conqueror is stacked, I suppose you will deal more damage anyways. Uh, let's walk to Diana. Diana wasn't really seen for a long time, so shield strength is a little bit higher than before. It scales with 5% more AP, and it gets 5 more flat shielding, which makes her clear, I guess, slightly more healthy. Her laning phase slightly more healthy. Um, from the other hand, the orb still a little more damage by 3 percentage. Note that there are in total 3 orbs and all of them get 3 percentage more AP scaling, right? Now, from the other hand, Lunar Rush, right? Her E gets buffed by 10 percentage damage, which is also great. So this will sort of buff one shot Diana, I suppose. Um, let's move on from this. Spirit of the Dread. Now this is a huge nerf towards Hecarim. It will affect his jungle clearance. It will affect his Drake clearing Herald, and but mainly it's gonna affect his duels because 10 less resistances is kind of bad because now he's way more vulnerable to assassins, and that sucks a bit honestly. So the champion is gutted, and it heavily relies right now on just getting some plays done in the early game. Jax gets a nerf by 1 second on his E, and it costs 50 more mana his ultimate, which generally means that AD carries in the late game gonna have 1 more second of window to DPS Jax, which means they can swing in 1 or 2 more extra autos than before. This will make his laning phase, of course, feel to be slightly easier. The champion will be still really good, of course. It's just like 1 second nerf, which does matter in some matchups, and you can play a little more aggressively, but it's really just a 1 second window where you can play more aggressively into Jax, so it's not the end of the world for Jax players. Now again, reasonable nerf on Karthus. Its flat damage got a little bit nerfed early on, but later on it's pretty much the same, right? Which means his early jungle clear will be affected. Perhaps he will be invaded, possibly. If he can clear fast enough, possibly. I'm not 100% sure what to tell you guys. But later on it's gonna be approximately the same as it was, right? Yeah, in the latest level it's gonna be the same. Also it deals 5% more damage towards monsters. It's slightly gonna affect his laning as well. The mana restoration on takedown, of course he's gonna get less mana right now, but that messes a little bit with his mana management, but the champion still should be really fine to play. Kindred, now this is a bit more devastating because she again gets 30 HP and 3 more armor, which means she's gonna be slightly more tank early on. The big issue is that she loses 10 attack damage and 1 second on her Q, which means that her clear gonna be affected, her taking down, of course, the deck's gonna be affected, and also ganks, because often, sometimes when you play Kindred, this is for Kindred players, often it feels like you're gonna press your Q and just exactly last hit someone before they get to be under tower, of course, and what happens if you don't get that off in time because of this 1 second delay, someone may escape. So right now it's slightly more likely that someone gonna escape your ganks, and it's a little harder also to kite if that matters, right? And it will be annoying because it will be harder to kite. That's an important thing to point out. Now, Lissandra gets a buff, so the trials don't stop when they're about to explode, so it's less likely people gonna perhaps walk out of it or something. Um, aside of that, you can hide. Trials will now follow enemies into a brush if they were already being chased. I don't know why that wasn't a feature so far. I see coming. Trials are revealed to enemies through Fog of War. That's good. That's good. Slow application will slow the first enemy hit. Q will now slow all enemies. But why wasn't this option? Like this should be already a thing in game, right? Q will cast from the position the post cast rather than pre-cast, which means you can Q flash. Uh, she heals more right now by a flat amount of 10 and also increased by 0 to 100% based on missing health, which is the same as before. Maximum heal value will be at 30% or less health now instead of 0 health. 0%, my bad. So you're gonna heal the teens a bit more. Damage and slow application cadence 4 times per second, 16 times per second, which means that it's gonna get like wider her ultimate faster, I suppose. Updated logic slightly around stopping dashes. So it does clock down right now or what? So does it knock now her ultimate or what? I don't get it. So Milio gets cut at 10 less damage early on, and also later on he gonna have 30 less damage, which is gonna massively affect his scaling, right? His scaling. Uh, Again, he provides less movement speed with his E, which is 5% later on, early on by 3, which kinda messes with the spacings of Milio and his AD carry. This is a significant nerf, which means that Milio will be good into CC, his damage will be lower, his utility speed will be lower, so you still may be able to play Milio to peel, but now offensively will have less so many stats. Now, the next guy I suppose he gets a bigger nerf in here, so he deals 5 less damage early on with his W, right? And later on he gonna deal 5 less damage. Now from the other hand, Furious Bite. So now this is a huger nerf because it says that the scaling, right, of his E-band toned down, which means that he deals 5 damage, not 55, so 50 damage loss is approximately a basic attack amount of damage, right? So apparently they nerf a lot is E by a flat amount and by 15 percentage. Oh, okay, now that's crazy, right? Which means that his scaling will be a bit worse, right? His DPS will be worse later on, and early on he gonna have less so much ganking potential, which means 55 less damage combined by a flat amount early on plus 15 percentage, so more than 55 basically. You're gonna deal when you stack up Conqueror, of course this matters a lot, so you will lose early on more than 60 damage, which is approximately a basic attack amount of damage you will lose out. So it's something like you should assume that you need to swing it more basic than before. Real nerf, again, reasonable, 3 less armor, he gonna be slightly squishier, he gonna be slightly worse into tanks, of course. Minimum armor and magic resist 1.23 up to 3 based on the champion's level, based on... No, maximum armor or still, it won't be 50 percentage, it will be 10 percentage because she's not so much of a anti-tank right now, which does actually matter. It does also affect Vitality champions on her side, of course. Rengar is gonna affect his early clear a little bit at 1 healed regen and also his top lane teams bit. Now critical strike damage conversion, this is gonna be a bigger nerf I suppose because AI gets buffed, so that's why they nerf his Q. Also the champion ban quite good in these patches. Now let's move to Shaco. This champion ban useless for a while, so hopefully for the better they buffed him. So the flat amount of damage is not really getting buffed, but by percentage it's gonna deal 10 percentage more damage, Shaco's Q, right? And apparently backstab bonus critical damage gonna be higher by 50 percentage, which gonna affect in general his one shots, his early game ganks by a teensy bit I suppose, cause his Q always crits by the way, right? Prowler's Club bug fix. Prowler's Club passive will now properly be applied on Shaco's clone. I guess that's kinda good, but aren't there just better items on Shaco than Prowler's Claw? I guess Prowler's is not bad as an item, right? Um, I don't know honestly if people will build Prowlers on Shaco. Because isn't just Borg in general better? Bonus physical damage. So, let's see what they buffed on Shyvana. So, they buffed 80 Shyvana specifically. Apparently, it's gonna have 20 more percentage damage on his Q, right? And attack speed increases. So, Shyvana next to attacks will have a set amount of bonus attack speed from 40 up to 60 percentage. And apparently the cooldown on her Q is gonna be slightly higher by 1. What does this mean? So she's gonna have generally more AD DPS later on, right? And also the attack speed does matter a lot when it comes to the leg clears and her full clear and to duels. So she's gonna be a bit better in duels. And also that attack speed itself allows you to reset your Q a bit faster, because we all know that the more you basic attack, the faster you reset your Q, of course. So it is gonna be an AD centric buff, which is kinda nice to have. Bonus magic damage on hit versus marked target, 3% of the target's maximum health, right? And right now it does scale with AP with bonus 80. Okay. 3% of the target's maximum health plus 1% bonus 80. So if you have, let's say, 280 on Shyvana or over 100 with Conqueror, maybe Conqueror Shyvana will be the new meta thing, right? So apparently if you have like over 180, bonus 80, right? Then you're gonna have one more percentage, which is kind of nice to have. On 200, you're gonna have 2%, which is 5% damage in total. She's gonna be a bit better into tanks, bruisers, right? Uh, Lightning Claws. Let's see if these buffs are useful. So the flat damage is same as before, but they buff his AP scaling by 10, right? 10 percentage, which is really good on AP Volibear. I suppose his DPS is gonna be a bit higher. Q will update removed a hitch in Volibear's auto attacks after stunning at high attack speed. Uh, well, I don't know if it's really gonna fix the champion, so he heals a bit more apparently. So this is a top lane specific AP buff more so. This for jungle is kinda useless because people don't really go AP in the jungle at most. Um, mm, Maybe you'll see probably like Volibear with Nashor, Shift and Heartbreaker being more OP than before, because his duels are a bit stronger, but that's all I can tell you guys. Serad gets a base mana nerf because his passive is of course getting buffed. It's gonna have it's gonna have 4 more seconds cooldown. But look at the important thing that every time he less hits a creep, he gonna have 2 less seconds on his passive, right? Which means that this he will be extremely good into Mazahar, because he usually summons 2 or 3 roaches, voidlings, right? Which means he's gonna remove uh, 6 CD on his passive, which means that Mazahar gonna be a bit weaker into Seraph these days. Also, what's also really important to point out that out of a wave there are usually 6 minions, right? 7 if it's cannon wave, which means you're gonna get, if you last hit all of the minions, you're gonna reduce the cooldown of your passive by 12. So even though it's 4 seconds more, it's gonna be 12 if you last hit every single minion, which allows you to play a little more aggressively with your mana. Tower is power, hitting turrets will now proc mana surge, which is kind of a nice change in case you wanna hit towers and continue. Number of casts 3, 4, 5, so you're gonna have one more cast than before. They're gonna nerf the flat damage by 20 and the percentage damage by 5%, which means if you only hit one snipe, you're gonna deal less damage before, but if you hit continuous ultimates, it says that you're gonna deal 20, 25, 30 more damage, which also scales with 5%, right? Which means that if you hit all of them, then you are supposed to do exponentially more damage than before, which means Seraph is even better if you pair it with CC champs. Plant damage from AoE is past 3, it's not 4 apparently. Okay, plant damage from ranged attacks is 5, so apparently the ranged ones will deal a little more damage. Plant damage to monsters 150% on epic monsters, 40 to 100 damage bonus to all monsters. So scales with champions levels. It means that it will be better early on, and her early clear will be better in the jungle, I suppose. Side as a support will have a better leash. Seeds on the first rank up. She's gonna have 2 of those seeds, which means she can play a little more aggressively than before, which is definitely a great change. Resets that cooldown of the comet a little faster, which means that you're gonna pressure a little more. E no longer locks Zyra out of flashing during the cast, which means you can E flash, of course, that's insane. Damage application candings 4 times per second, 16 times per second. Casting logic, Zyra will walk to the position at which her R was cast. Zyra will immediately cast her R at its maximum range. Oh, that's good. Now, this generally means that her ult gonna go way faster off, I suppose. Axiomar gets a change, so 20% of total cooldown, but it goes down actually to 5%. plus 40% of the total lethality, which means that at like 2 lethality items that provide 18 flat lethality damage will actually be approximately as same as before, but after the third lethality item, you're gonna get more Axiom arc value. Heal Force, more cooldown, which means champions gonna be more vulnerable, or they will be less so likely to be able to go for aggressive heals, which means that AD carry is gonna have more deaths per minute, and also they're gonna get less likely get kills, right? Infinity's Edge, so it gets a 10% buff, really good for Ion, Yasuo, Tryndamere, but for other champions, like the 5 flat damage is something in the early game, but if you can get some crits off, like as a third item, it will be always better, right? It just abilities will deal less damage because of that 5 damage nerf, right? Prowler's Claw, not too much play this item gets, so debuffed his lethality by 3, it's nice to have. Critical strike damage reduction is 25%, which means it's almost an anathema's chain against crit AD carries, crit champs, which will be definitely good because they buff the Infinity Edge, so I suppose that's the reasoning behind buffing the Randuin's. Spear of Sojin, I always said this item is too expensive, so they buffed its cost by 100 and the health by 50, which means that right now it's a bit more accessible and provides more. Maybe we'll see more Spear of Sojins, then more Spirit Visage, Magic Resist, which means that people are gonna be slightly more tank, attack speed gonna be a bit higher on Static Shield, but apparently they're gonna nerf its damage. So it's 250 damage up to 450, but now it's gonna go up to 350 at max. And mhm. I see, so it's scaling gonna be slightly worse as well. Stellax Gauge again, I always said this thing needs a buff, so it received 100 more, of course, like gold buff, right? It costs less, my bad, and provides 50 more HP, slightly more tank, slightly more accessible. Trinity Force, 2% attack speed nerf, which does borderline nothing, except some DPS, it messes with some DPS, of course, attack damage per stack gonna be a bit less. 3% x 3%, this is just 6% apparently, so in total you're gonna have like 2% less damage than before, but it's not really a big deal honestly, because some champions like Graves want to stack it up in 3 hits, right, and instead of like 5, so this is kinda good for Graves actually. Ghost gets a huge change, so it's gonna last like 10 from 10 seconds to 15, which is kind of good, but the duration on takedowns goes no longer extend, right? Which is kind of an issue when it comes to multi-killing, but it's supposed to be still fine because that 5 extra like movement speed just matters a lot, honestly, even if you don't reset it. So this will be definitely a buff for champions that want to get one only kill. This is a huge buff for champions that take, of course, in top playing ghosts like Tryndamere, Darius, you name it. Uh, Well, also it's still gonna be okay on AD carries to go for it. You can go for multi kills, but that 5 extra second does matter a lot. So Ghost will be still picked. It's not the best anymore for multi kills, right? Burn through damage. So 10 to 78, 10 to 75. So it's gonna deal slightly less damage later on, of course, and the melee slow will be worse early on, which means that early game oriented junglers will be slightly worse at ganking, which means people may gonna escape early on. Range slow gonna be slightly nerfed as well. Huh? Okay, so later on it's gonna be only a 10 percentage. Okay. Crest of Inside ability haste. Early on it's gonna be a slightly lower, which means that again it messes with the clear a little bit of some champions. And also like later on it's gonna scale better, which means it's gonna provide 20 ability haste. Item adjustments, we don't really care about these. The other things are just bug fixes. That's it from now then. Have a nice day.